Okay, everybody. Well, hope everyone's having a good weekend, recovering from the holiday and being safe out there in the bad weather. We're not too bad. Snow, but not bad. Another good show tonight. Billy Bean came out, 20 minutes. Carol, Tim Burst, Aunt Lucy, Daniel early. Yep, we'll see how many we get in tonight. Hopefully, we'll have a good crowd tonight. A lot of good stuff. I guess there was an earthquake I was reading happened somewhere. I can't remember where it was.
The cryptocurrency industry is about to have a
No, Chico. Oh. Oh, I got to have my popsicle. I had a popsicle out. So we'll get started here. A few here. And Carol. Yep. Every day is summer. I'll have ice cream later. So yeah, Billy came out 20 minutes, Carol. You see it? So the college basketball, pro basketball, and hockey. Oh, well, we'll watch it. It's a short one.
If you need money now, there's a better way that.
And must have fallen asleep. That's enough, buddy. Melania's having a movie out or something, January 30th. So the first one will be a 7-minute one I found on the Epstein Island. I think it's a new video. I haven't seen it yet, but we'll get that. Hey, Mike. Yep, I saw that. I don't know if I can't find it, what you sent. Oh, 11, Carol. Going. That's odd. Okay, go lay down. You don't need nothing. You're fine.
And we've divided it into 3 main sections, so we can tell the complete story. The first villa sits on a point just below the main house, built years after Epstein purchased the island. Next to it is another residence, connected to the pool complex by a lower level doorway. This one even had an outdoor bath backed by a giant mirror looking out toward the sea. Facing the ocean is a wide stone patio. Set into the floor are 2 mirrored shell designs, along with the letter E. It may have been decoration, or something more symbolic. Above it all is the main house itself, the largest residence on the island. When Epstein bought Little St. James in 1998, this house was already here, but he had it remodeled and expanded into part of a much larger complex. The sea-facing side has a veranda, while the back of the house opens into the pool area. That pool complex is massive. It has 4 cabanas, a pergola, and a large swimming pool in the middle. At the far end of the pool was a statue of a seated archer.
This
and
is
beyond
an
it, a
interesting
painted
one. I've never
compass
seen this
that
one.
some
I don't
mistook
think
for a helipad.
this came out.
Parts of the pool complex were
7
2-story,
minutes.
with staircases and hidden doors that led into lower levels. Not far away, along the beach, another villa was hidden behind thick trees. Visitors usually arrive by sea. Boats pulled into the island's jetty, which had a covered loading and waiting area. Those who came by air landed at the grassy helicopter pad. It had small shelters for passengers and luggage. Nearby, 2 strange details stand out. At the top of a slope is a giant monkey statue, and beside it, a stone staircase that leads up the hill, then stops abruptly, earning it the name the Stairs to Nowhere. This northern section of the island was meant to impress. Moving toward the center of the island, the design shifts. Here, the focus is less on luxury and more on control. Tucked into the trees is a low building, almost hidden from view. Its purpose is still unknown. Just beyond it lies the island's main service area. This section held the machines that kept everything running. The desalination plant for fresh water, generators for power, storage rooms, and sewage management. Some of these buildings were built directly into the hillside. Their flat rooftops doubled as parking pads, and vents cut into the ground hinted at larger rooms below. In one case, drone footage even captured doors leading deeper into the hill, raising questions about what might have been hidden underground. From this hub, a steep road winds upward. On the surface, it looks like a simple path, but it may cover a water pipeline that connects to the island's fountain. The fountain itself sat quietly in the middle of the island, ringed with benches. In one video, deer were seen grazing nearby, giving the strange sense of calm in a place filled with secrets.
What do you guys think so far?
Closer to the southern edge of this section,
Pretty
a
interesting,
massive sundial stands. Once, it was surrounded by 13 brightly painted benches. Some say representing the 13 ruling bloodlines in conspiracy lore.
About 3 minutes.
The face of the sundial resembles a Masonic design, another detail that fueled speculation. Nearby, smaller structures dotted the coast. One open-air cabana seemed to have massage tables beneath its straw roof. Another beachside building, now only ruins, may have been for changing clothes or toilets. Close to the sundial, an odd patch of beach is marked out on Google Maps, blurred as if to hide something. On higher ground sits a large building with 3 garage doors and a row of sealed windows. Some have described it as a staff barracks, others as storage. Either way, it stood apart from the luxury of the main house, suggesting it was built for those who worked or were kept on the island. This middle zone tied everything together. The southern stretch of the island is where the strangest and most unsettling designs appear. At the far southwest tip stands the most infamous structure of all, the so-called temple.
Okay. This is
Painted in
interesting,
bold
Carol.
blue and white stripes, it once had a golden dome and statues of Poseidon and birds perched on its corners. From the outside, it looks like something out of another world. Early visitors described its inside as a music room with bookshelves, a grand piano, and even a portrait of Epstein with a pope. But by 2019, drone footage revealed only scaffolding, mattresses, and junk, as if it had been stripped bare. Some believe a small nearby shed hides entrances underground, though nothing has ever been proven. One site shows a pergola with 2 sealed doors built into the hillside. A second building that once stood here was destroyed during Hurricane Irma, leaving behind only a flagpole and a concrete slab. This part of the island also served as a dumping ground. Trash was buried under dirt, but over time, pieces surfaced again. Visitors later reported seeing everything from machinery to broken furniture left rotting under the sun. Above the dump is a second swimming pool. Unlike the grand pool complex near the main house, this one was smaller, attached to a 1,200 square foot building with a garage-style door. Other features add to the eerie design. A flight of stairs to nowhere climbs up the hillside, ending abruptly with a statue at its top. A large monkey statue sits nearby, silent and unsettling. At the highest point of the island, a tall telecom tower looms, with Wi-Fi repeaters fixed to buildings all around, ensuring constant surveillance and communication. Here, on this southern edge, beauty and mystery collide. The temple, the sundial, the sealed doors, and the landfill, all of it suggests an island designed not only for privacy, but for secrecy.
How was that one to start off? Okay, next one's 2 minutes.
U.S. soil, not by a foreign enemy, but carried out by our own agencies.
Struggle of Cuban patriots against a Cuban dictator.
The Joint Chiefs of Staff signed off on plans so chilling, they read like a nightmare. They imagined passenger planes shot down and blamed on Cuba. They drew up schemes to bomb Miami and stage coordinated attacks in Washington, D.C. They discussed sinking boats of Cuban refugees so the footage could be used as propaganda. Even remotely piloted aircraft crashing into buildings was on the table, complete with fake passenger lists released to the press.
On March 13th, 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff put this document in front of the Secretary of Defense for approval from the President. This is a memo prepared by the most senior leaders in the U.S. military, some of the most powerful men in the country. And they're asking for permission to execute a plan to lob mortar shells into their own military bases with some damage to installations, and then to make hijacking attempts against civilian air and surface craft. They're proposing to blow up a U.S. ship in the U.S. naval base Guantanamo Bay, and even to conduct a terror campaign on American soil, exploding a few plastic explosives in carefully chosen spots. We're looking at a plan to blow things up on American soil and then to blame it all on Cuba.
Cuban people have not yet spoken their final piece.
This operation never happened, but it almost did.
For decades, those files stayed hidden. When declassified, they revealed just how close America came to a government-made tragedy. If leaders can plan to sacrifice their own people for war, what does that say about power and accountability? Think about that. The military calculated how many Americans might die to justify war. Every scenario was crafted for maximum fear, to turn the nation toward invasion.
Okay, that was only a 2-minute clip, but that was good. This is out of Texas. Next one, 11 minutes.
Acid spill update from some of the officials. Let's listen into this here on Live Now from Fox.
Hi, I'm Courtney Joyner, the VP of HR and Communications.
Sorry, Ms. Courtney, would you get this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Hi, I'm Courtney Joyner. I'm the VP of HR and Communications for BWC Terminals. As discussed, the spill has been localized and remediation is underway. All BWC employees are accounted for and safe. And BWC officials are working diligently with the local authorities, federal government, Coast Guard, and so forth to remediate and mitigate the impacts to the community and to the environment. And we would like to thank all of the authorities who've been here to help us in this process and help mitigate.
Do you have any questions? Could you talk real quick, Ms. Courtney, about the evacuation procedures and that sort of thing when something like this does happen within one of the facilities?
And have you guys had anything like this happen before?
No, we have not had anything happen. We have not had anything happen of this nature in the past. We worked with the local authorities to determine the evacuation area and processes.
And how would you say it went today, I guess?
Oh, very well, very well. The communication with the authorities was diligent, and they did a significant amount of testing in making that determination.
Are all 44, in addition to the 2 who were taken to the hospital, work with the WC?
No, they were, we took them off as a precautionary measure and evaluated them. They were on the vessel across the slip from us.
I wonder if this is by Kay. Kay's not in yet.
Happening there was injured or impacted.
Correct.
So There was no one inside.
Our operators.
We had operators on site, but nobody was. They were able to leave the premises without anybody being hurt.
They were up when we were able to begin our emergency notification protocols. And again, our focus is primary objective is people, protect people and the environment. So that was our focus, and then in suit with that, working and collaborating, as Judge mentioned, with federal, state, and local officials.
Let me let the chief answer just a little bit more of that question, and we'll come back to it.
So more to answer your question, our initial 5 patients came from Energy Transfer, which was downwind from the leak. Of those 5, 2 were transported, and the other 3 were refusals. The other, I guess it'd be 38, my math's correct. There was 2 ships, 2 vessels, and each vessel had 19 crew members, and they all got evaluated, and they all refused. They just got a checkup, and then they were released on scene.
This was precautionary.
Precautionary. Well, they did have some signs, maybe their throat, or but we evaluated everybody from both ships, and we only transported the 2 from the neighboring company.
Would y'all be able to walk us through exactly what may have led up to this catwalk collapse?
Okay, that's out of Texas. A leak, chemical leak. It's about 3 minutes on this one.
Industry certainly can't solve these.
Is delay, and delay is a snare the enemy uses to keep you unready. As the final days of December approach, remember this: darkness does not only mean the absence of light, it can mean confusion, fear, sudden pressure on the soul, emotional turbulence, attacks on your peace. These things may not make the headlines, but they are real and they're deadly to the unprepared. The world, in these final days of the year, becomes intoxicated with distraction, sales, noise, entertainment. But heaven is asking for stillness, prayer, repentance. Do not be like the 5 foolish virgins who slept with no oil. Be like the wise who stayed awake, whose lamps were trimmed, whose hearts were ready. Their oil was more than olive oil. It was obedience. It was humility. It was purity. And it was prayer. So keep your oil. Guard your soul. Stay awake. Many have asked, why these dates? Why is it from December 29th to the 31st that this warning comes? My children, understand that time is not governed solely by calendars made by human hands. There are spiritual seasons, windows in time, when heaven releases grace and when darkness seeks to rise. These 3 days at the end of the year carry an unseen spiritual weight. While the world busies itself with distractions, celebrations, noise, and indulgence, the enemy sees an opening. It is often during such moments of comfort and blindness that he does his quietest damage. The hearts of men are lulled to sleep, and the soul forgets to.
Sorry, guys. I thought that was 4 minutes. That was 44 minutes. I don't know it was that long. Okay, we got Q videos coming up. We'll get Billy Bean here shortly.
Before Congress today in a hearing about the weaponization of the DOJ. He sat before them and he recalled an entire conversation that he had with his attorney or with his client, Michael Cohen. He said that he asked Michael Cohen point blank. He said, did Donald Trump have any information, or did he have any way of knowing that you were going to make this payment to Stormy Daniels? Michael Cohen said no. Trump knew nothing about it. He said, so why did you make the payment? Michael Cohen said, well, I was afraid that this was going to be incredibly embarrassing to Trump, and to Melania. He said, did you have any reason to believe that the story was true about Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump? And Michael Cohen told him, quote, I didn't believe the story even from the beginning. I did not believe that there was any truth to it, but I was afraid of the embarrassment. He went on to ask him, well, how did you make this payment? And Michael Cohen told him, as we already heard, that he took out a HELOC on his home. But I mentioned this before. He said that he took the HELOC out. He told his lawyer, he took the HELOC out because he didn't want his wife asking too many questions, because she handles the household finances, and she would have had 100 questions about him taking that type of money out. So he didn't want to answer to his wife. Now, that's the interesting part, because if I told my wife I have to take care of one of my clients, it's Donald Trump, I know that he's going to be good for it and he'll pay me back. I'm going to do that before I take a HELOC on my home. Now, if his wife is that involved in the family finances, I'm still going back to the fact I don't buy it on double coupon day. I don't buy it that he was able to take this out without his wife knowing. I believe that Michael Cohen, according to previous testimony from Michael Avenatti and the affidavit, that Michael Cohen was the one who was romantically involved with Stormy Daniels. Now, with that being said, Michael Cohen, once again, through his attorney, said that he had no idea what was going on. He did not believe the story. Then he went on to tell his client, Mr. Costello, told Michael Cohen, he said, look, whatever information that you have on Donald Trump, you need to give that to the U.S. attorney. He says you need to turn that information over immediately, because if you don't, you're going to spend time in jail. But I can work out a deal for you if you're willing to give them whatever information you have on Donald Trump. He said that Michael Cohen, and I quote, I have nothing on Trump. As God is my witness, I don't have anything on Trump. So how is it this man stood before the court yesterday and had a completely different story? This is why I say there's got to be a mistrial. If it's not, then Trump needs to fire his entire legal team. This guy has had 3 different versions of this story. So how do we know that this one is true? Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with the mistrial?
Okay, that's cue number 1. Minnesota lady.
And Gavin Newsom's shock today when during his big presser and he was attacking Trump, there were 100 ICE and Border Patrol there rounding up the illegals and arresting them right during his press conference. And he was trying to act like he was all, tough guy. He was going after Trump. He was going to make Trump pay. Trump is so corrupt and bad and whatever. And yeah, he's going to make him pay. And Trump's ICE and Border Patrol go out there. Karen Bass was all kinds of mad about it. She said there was no way this was by accident. There was no way this just happened, because this event had been publicized. Oh my gosh, y'all. I hope so bad they purposely did it. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but that's just so Trump of a thing to do. While Gavin is on TV spouting off about how terrible Trump is, Trump goes, "Get 'em, boys." And they do. In other LA news, it's an LA council member that's found himself in quite a bit of hot water. Seems that he has been caught embezzling $800,000 from the city. Is that the kind of politicians that work in LA? I mean, I'm seeing a pattern of this in a lot of Democrat states. I've not seen it in Republican states. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because I'm sure it can and does. but you see it a lot in the Democrat-run cities and states. But people from California, what do you think? Is LA really a safe place to live? That's what Karen and Gavin are trying to tell everybody and sell everybody on, that it's a safe place. You people that live there, tell us your experiences. How safe is LA? Would you want to?
That was a good one. 2-minute clip.
Hey, do you want to get a coffee before work?
I would love to, but I can't.
Are you more in a matcha mood?
Well, so I'm actually saving.
Heavy snow has forced some US states to declare a state of emergency. The white Christmas causing thousands of cancelled flights and travel chaos during the holiday season. Amelia Harper has more.
New York City is under a blanket of snow. Fire engines make their way through streets of slush. This, the result of a major winter storm across the northeast of the United States. People are out scraping the pavements, preparing for the worst snow to hit the city in nearly 4 years. These snowplows have been continually clearing the roads, a state of emergency declared here and in neighboring New Jersey.
We know many New Yorkers may be traveling for the holidays, so we want to ask them to limit travel on our roads during this time. If you must travel, use public transportation. And I want to be clear, the city is ready. DSNY, NYSEM, FDNY, NYPD, and DOT, and all our agencies have been working around the clock preparing for this winter weather system.
An hour's drive from New York City is Long Island.
All right, we are completely back to heavy snow at this point.
Locals film from their front doors as over 7 inches of snow falls around them. It could, though, reach up to 12.
Look at that. Really heavy snow coming down right now.
Nearly 5 hours south, Montgomery County looks the same. The street lamp illuminating the heavy snowfall. And directly north, another 5 hours away, snowplows are out in Rochester. Some drivers are attempting the roads behind it, despite being warned not to. Thousands of flights in and out of the Northeast have been cancelled. Planes at Rochester International Airport disappear as they hit the runway. The passengers taking off on this Delta Airlines flight are some of the lucky ones. With dark skies and freezing temperatures, this won't be the white Christmas that anyone wanted. Amelia Harper, Sky News.
Wow, I'm glad not in New York.
Is reaching DEFCON 1, and it's all unfolding with just days to go before a make-or-break election. Over in Minneapolis, a mayoral candidate born abroad is taking the stage, not waving Old Glory, but rather flaunting foreign colors while speaking in his native language, all while urging supporters to vote for him on November 4th. How are we allowing this to happen on American soil? Meanwhile, Representative Ilhan Omar recently calling the president of Somalia our president in a public speech, praising her special relationship with him. And we're also learning more disturbing details about Zohran Mamdani's inner circle. These officials, they're not whispering anymore. Their vision is perfectly clear, and it's time voters pay attention before these plans shape the future of our country. And for today's bonus, Gavin Newsom, I'm starting to think he's auditioning to perform sign language during the national anthem at the Super Bowl. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. The left is rallying behind these radical candidates under the banner of social justice, but heaven forbid you call out their crazy left ideas, and then you're instantly branded a racist or labeled intolerant faster than you can say cancel culture. They're not building up America. They're undermining our innovators, the entrepreneurs who fuel our economy and keep this nation moving. So instead, they want citizens that are dependent on government programs so they can consolidate power. It's not compassion, it's control, like promising to end corruption while you hire your campaign donors as staff members. Although maybe I shouldn't say that out loud and give the left any new ideas. Even Fox News is sounding the alarm bells. Watch this.
As I've been saying, these democratic socialists, they are coming for your city. And let me tell you why. So you know Zohran Mamdani, we've been talking about him. He's New York. He's a Democratic Socialist Party. He wants city-run grocery stores free, and he says fast buses. We'll see about that. Free lawyers for illegal immigrants, and there's more where that came from. But he's not the only one. Across the country, there are more. Two more examples. In Minneapolis, Omar Fateh is running. He wants to fund non-police programs, keep homeless encampments, and stabilize rent. You hear?
These are not the people looking to make America great again. In fact, behind their social justice branding is just a policy package that raises costs, it weakens enforcement, and puts ideology over everyday safety. They refuse to embrace our history. Instead, they want to rewrite it. They reject the core ideas that make America the envy of the world, and instead, they want to shove their ideologies down our throats. We'll take a hard look at this poll. It's the wake-up call New Yorkers need. Among American-born voters, Andrew Cuomo surges ahead at 40%, while Mamdani, he lags at 31%, and Sliwa holds 25%. That's what I would expect to see in these polls. However, if you flip to foreign-born voters, it is a total plot twist. Mamdani dominates with a whopping 62%, leaving Cuomo at 24% and Sliwa scraping 12%. We are at a tipping point where outsiders are infiltrating our halls of power, reshaping America into the very nightmare they fled. Talk about bringing your baggage with you. And brace yourselves for this head scratcher in Minneapolis. Omar Fateh stages a rally begging for votes this Tuesday, but there is no American flag in sight. In fact, he's waving a Somali flag like it's the star of the show, jabbering in Somali and pledging loyalty to his people. Without context, you would swear this was an event happening overseas, not in our backyard. Roll the tape. It is equal parts absurd and alarming.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, this is
Assalamu alaikum. Somalia. Somalia.
Sorry about that one, guys. That was an old one. It was just about over. 10 seconds. We'll see if I got this one here. Shoot. I got a bunch more new ones. I believe this one's a new one. Then we'll get to Billy Bean here shortly.
Massive civil fraud penalty against President Trump. Hit that like button for me if you are celebrating, because we know President Trump is. Originally, Trump was ordered to cough up more than $360 million with interest, that number then ballooning to nearly $500 million. But after 11 months of review, the appellate court just said, not so fast. That fine, it's out. Now let's rewind for a second and remind everyone what the bogus case was actually about.
The core allegation is that Donald Trump habitually overvalued his own assets when he was trying to get bank loans from banks and other lenders. And essentially, the argument that Donald Trump made below that has now had resonance in the appeals court is you're talking about very sophisticated, quote unquote, victims. These are billion-dollar banks that made the loans, got repaid on the loans by Donald Trump with interest, and actually profited to the tune of millions of dollars. So it's not the typical type of fraud case where you have somebody stealing money from other people or ripping off unknowing consumers.
So basically, Trump made the banks money, but Letitia James still called it fraud. Even CNN was forced to choke down the truth today. Watch this.
I have been skeptical of the Attorney General's case for a long time. I'm on record saying that this is a huge win for Donald Trump, any way you cut it, and this is a stinging rebuke to the Attorney General, Letitia James. The finding here, it's a very long, complicated ruling, but the bottom line is, while the finding of liability against Donald Trump can stand, for now at least, the damages award, which started at $350 million with interest, gets up close to $500 million, that is thrown out. And the core reason for that ruling, according to the judges, is essentially that there was not enough of a showing here that there were actual victims.
The court made it very clear, writing, quote, while the injunctive relief ordered by the court is well crafted to curb defendants' business culture, the court's disgorgement order, which directs that defendants pay nearly $500 million to the state of New York, is an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. So in other words, this wasn't justice. It was punishment by politics. The 8th Amendment protects Americans from excessive fines and cruel punishment. And this case, it checked all of those boxes. And let's be honest, Letitia James, she only got this far because she shopped for a judge that was willing to play along. This was the judge seen smirking for the cameras during the trial, which in my opinion, reeks of corruption.
both the judge and James tried to effectively price Trump out of even appealing the case. They insisted that he would have to pony up $500 million just to question what they did in the case. And it was an outrageous effort to effectively price out an appeal. It didn't work. And now we can see that the appellate court said this should never have happened in terms of the fine.
Get ready to do Billy
Yes,
Bean
the court left
here.
in place the finding of lies is a political earthquake. A New York appeals court has just obliterated the massive civil fraud
beginning-
penalty against President
the
Trump.
first one
Hit that
was,
like button for me if you are celebrating, because we know.
Okay, that was over. The first one was 7 minutes of Epstein's digraph thing there. I don't know where Kay's at. Kay and Ian's late. So we got, let's see what one we got next. Oh, yeah, let's get Billy Bean out of the way. Dang it, what happened now? Oh. Hang on. Okay, I got it. Robert. Well, hope you had a good holiday.
Time to make those New Year's resolutions. Time in Texas about 6 a.m.
21 minutes, you guys.
Some of the sources I'll use today: Zero Hedge, Daily Mail, Pepe Escobar, Alex Craner, Michael Jaco, Glenn Deason. Plus, some of the things we'll cover. We have an M5 flare today, and Atlas constituted our first contact. Oh, hey, we were going to tell y'all President Trump gives a message at the White House that Christmas equals the birth of Jesus Christ. And what's going on in Venezuela? We see China prepping with exercises to attack the U.S. in the Caribbean. And China also loading up Club K missiles on its commercial cargo ships. This is going to be interesting. So let's get started. What do we have going on in space? So we had off of the sun in the last 24 hours, we had an M5 flare. And we see Venus and Mars positioned around the sun, with Venus to go behind the sun January 6th, and Mars to go also behind the sun January 9. So that's going on. And what about Atlas? What's going on with that? We still see the Pentagon using Operation Star Shield to block radio signals from Atlas. Now, many sources now are converging to put forth that Atlas is a interstellar object, a spaceship, most likely operated by Anunnaki, the fallen angels, and Nephilim. A very negative group for humans on Earth. So we see the Earth taking a defensive posture toward Atlas. And we have this. Yeah. Ben Davidson brought out a good white paper, brought notice to it of the relationship between the Earth's electromagnetic fields and what happens to flowers and bees during a pole shift. We are seeing that now with many species of bees decimated and crops not being pollinated with flowers. And it's being put forth. This is a direct effect of the ongoing pole shift that we are in. So that's going on. And we have this. So from Stephen Burns, yes, and other sources put forth that the sun is losing plasma. So we have plasma coming off of the sun. And we're seeing, I believe that was Mike from Around the World put forth. We're seeing on the sun like the largest group of holes are in the sun, sunspots. And Stephen Burns puts forth that plasma, so plasma from the sun is now coming from the sun and impacting Earth. So that's going on. It's the largest hole on the sun in the 21st century. The sun is losing plasma. And also that Atlas will be moving from the constellation Virgo to Leo and is once again changing color, green to gold. So that's going on. And we have this. All right. We have that being put forth now by, from the Dr. Kipling, who published in the monthly Notice to Royal Astronomical Society. Our first contact with Atlas was in 1977, which he puts forth was our first contact, as we've seen in movies like First Contact. I believe that was with Jodie Foster. But now we have reliable astronomy sources putting out, yes, the Earth did have its first contact in 1977 via a radio signal from Atlas. And hey, we were going to tell y'all when we could no longer hide it, as is ongoing now since Atlas is visible to amateur astronomers. And we have this. So we have also, when we have these cycles going on in space, that all often goes along with big changes in economy. We're seeing silver now in the U.S. up around $72 an ounce. In China, I believe it's up around $80 to $85 an ounce. So we see big change in our markets going on. We also see a big impact on the war cycle. And for my part, I wouldn't be surprised to see in 2026 in the U.S. a possibility of a military draft. Just saying, and certainly something for us to pray against. So we know we have Ukraine, Russia, Europe, China, and we have all of these big players, Russia and China, now embedded in Venezuela and Cuba. This is reminiscent of the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Well, baby, it's going on right now. And I know a lot of people are saying, why is President Trump putting 15% of the U.S. Navy in the Caribbean? I submit this, it's to defend America, because in Venezuela, we have Russian and Chinese military troops and assets, as well as in Cuba, 90 miles off of the Florida coast. So we have this coming out from Danny Hopag, interviewed Pepe Escobar, that Zelensky went to Italy to talk to the government of Italy to put in a Ukrainian military base near Sicily. And there was strong pushback by the Italian people who.
Mike, you talking about the London Bridge? That's where I grew up at. But I said a long time ago. Is that what you're talking about?
Do not want Ukraine military inside Italy. So that's a no-go. It was going to be a Ukraine base, not NATO. But the people of Italy rejected that. So that's going on. And we have this. BP Earthwatch, Venezuela. So we've seen the U.S. Taking charge of Chinese oil tankers moving from Venezuela into the Caribbean. Now, BP Earthwatch believes there's a possibility the U.S. is taking these oil tankers, and one of them, they have 3 so far, one of them could be a Trojan horse. And we have some more information coming out that makes BP's position stronger. So we have Cuba right here. We have the 3 oil tankers coming in. One is going to Houston, Galveston area, where I live. And we have this. The Pentagon says a Chinese tanker, they have 3 of them. One of them was carrying 100 ICBMs.
All right, sorry.
And that China is now putting ICBMs on launchers as of December the 22nd between the border of China and Mongolia.
Everything's good, and you?
So that's going on. But China and Russia are both taking strong military moves aimed at, it appears, against the U.S. We have President Trump naming an envoy to Greenland. President Trump has said the U.S. needs Greenland for its security. He has named Governor Jeff Landry of Louisiana, who I understand will continue in his role as governor, but will also function as a special envoy for President Trump to Greenland. So that's going on. And we have this from the White House. President Trump, yes, puts forth that the U.S. is gearing up to manufacture Navy ships called the Golden Fleet, and they'll be 100 times bigger and better than our current ships. Way to go, President Trump. We had seen in the past the Democrats, who are socialist, trying to destroy the U.S. military, whereas President Trump is now taking strong steps to bolster our strength to engage and pursue peace through strength. We have this from Michael Jaco. We have this going on in the state of Georgia. Yes, the Georgia election was rigged and there was fraud in the presidential election of 2020. Remember when Fannie Willis, AG, DA, and she was the DA in Fulton County, Georgia, charged President Trump with interfering in the 2020 election. Shut up, Fannie. So now it's coming out, Georgia has to admit that there were 315,000 illegal votes, which let JB win Georgia by about 12,000 votes. So we see Georgia, the state of Georgia, itself engaged in election fraud in 2020. We would wonder how many of the election officials in Georgia in 2020 were being paid off by the CCP. So that's going on. We have this from Glenn Deason, who interviewed Alex Krainer, a European journalist, who says, according to the U.S., President Trump's new security strategy paper, the U.S. recognizes the world is multipolar and that this is a U.S. plan to destroy the new world order. So way to go, President Trump. And we have this from Hal Turner. According to an EU leader of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen,
5 minutes.
Speech in Europe is like a virus, and it needs to be controlled and censored by governments, much like a vaccine. So we see Europe going publicly full commie. And we have this from Zero Hedge.
Yeah, you're busy, huh?
Okay.
Sorry.
China,
Yeah,
over
we're
the
here.
weekend,
On
put
show.
on its TV
Hope
an exercise of China versus the U.S. in the Caribbean, right here. And demonstrated Chinese ships, military ships going into Cuba, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Houston, Texas. So we see BP Earthwatch's position of one of these tankers being a Trojan horse could indeed be true. So at any rate, China put it on their TV sets. Yes, and of course, showed themselves as winning against the U.S. And the plan, according to the exercise, was for China to be in Cuba and Mexico, to enter the U.S. at Houston, Texas, and then take over the Gulf of America and the Caribbean. I got this to say to China, shut up. And we have this, because China is a pagan nation. They destroy any religions at all. The CCP has written a CCP Bible. You can go to a CCP church and worship CCP. It is pagan. Whereas America, we have God on our side. And we have this from TWZ.
Still missing.
Satellites now confirm that China is loading up its commercial cargo ships with military missiles. They're called Club K. And we first heard this term, Club K, in about 2019 or 18 from General McInerney. And
There's
also
KK.
Stephen Banoon with Israeli News Live. He was formerly with the CIA. He had information on it. So we have a ship.
Good stuff already, Kay.
And the ship has on it containers. And the Club K missiles work this way. The container lid then comes up, opens, and a missile comes out and fires. So we see China now loading its commercial cargo ships with military missiles. So another question would be, what rules apply to this vessel? So China is loading cargo ships with missiles. It can get 60 vertical launches, Club K, on one medium-sized cargo ship. And it's also installing radar on these commercial ships. So that's going on. Satellites confirm this is going on. And that would go along with the exercise trying to put on TV of its ships coming in from all directions here. And we have this from Gospel News. Christmas Eve, Russia put out its strategic bombers called Bears, Tu-95. And they went from Russia over to in the area of the UK and Norway. They went over the Norway Sea to the coast, near the coast of the UK. Tu-95 Bears, accompanied by Russian Su-33 fighter jets. And they were in the air 7 hours. Naturally, NATO scrambled jets. I put forth that this was a show of force by Russia to Europe. And we have this from Breitbart, that President Trump, over the Christmas weekend, made public statements from the White House, he and several of his cabinet members, that the reason for Christmas is to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And I put this forth. The pagan nation of China cannot prevail against a nation whose leader acknowledges Jesus Christ. So I believe it's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Well, that's a little better one on Billy today. Thank you guys. A little better. I got a four clip, 3 minute on the Boston bombing.
The official story is that 2 bombs were exploded within 12 seconds of each other near the finish line of the Boston Marathon on the afternoon of April 15th, 2013. Here's another view from directly overhead. Here's another view, looking up to the medical tent from the finish line, which has a little bridge looking over it. Here's a view from just a few steps past the finish line, incidentally taken at 5 minutes and 44 seconds after the pyrotechnic display. You can see the white medical tent up the block and also see some empty wheelchairs on the side under the viewing bridge. Concerning the proximity of medical responders and equipment, an important fact to note is that according to a FEMA assessment of the Boston Marathon so-called bombing, there was no lack of wheelchairs or stretchers near the scene. The report says, quote, volunteers and bystanders used over 100 wheelchairs and stretchers positioned around the finish line to transport victims to the medical tent. These pictures show us some mainstream media cameramen at work soon after the pyrotechnic display. The only images of this event that the vast majority of the public has ever
You want
seen
to
have
see this
come from
four-part?
mainstream media sources. The major source of both photographic and video footage comes from the Boston Globe. Additional mainstream footage comes from Fox News, ABC, NBC, and CBS, and a few professional freelance photographers. There were a few non-professionals and non-insiders who approached the scene and took some cell phone video or photos before being driven away by shouting police or by shouting bystanders. There were also two people who took many photos from nearby windows, one from more or less above the scene and another from down the street a distance. In the next two slides, I'm going to introduce the two sets of photographs taken from the nearby windows. This is the first of the Thorndike set of photos. Altogether, there are 26 photos, and they capture 2 through 14 seconds after the pyrotechnic display near the finish line. There are about 65 photos in the Aaron Tang set, which captured the scene near the finish line, from 19 seconds to over 20 minutes after the pyrotechnic display. This is just to show you the locations of Thorndike and Ha Ha Tango. This is the only photo I've found taken from a window on the other side of the scene. This photo captures exactly 1 minute and 38 seconds after the first pyrotechnic display, before anyone was taken out of the area by wheelchair or by stretcher. Note that there is actually not a lot of people on the scene in this photo. Altogether, at the first pyrotechnic site, there were 27 victims lying or sitting down on the ground, appearing to be injured.
Okay, part one.
Not all of them clearly visible in this photo, of course. Plus, there were a number of people who stayed standing and walking around at the site and were later reported as injured. Plus, there were a number of people who ran away from the site very soon after the pyrotechnic display, or possibly were never near the site at all and were later reported as injured. And at the second pyrotechnic display site, a block down the street, there was a much smaller amount of victims. We will soon be discovering that all of these victims are actually crisis actors. Now, when I say crisis actors, I don't mean professional actors or professional crisis actors. I mean people of various professions and walks of life who were recruited to be crisis actors in this particular event. Here is the site of the second pyrotechnic display, which is a block further back from the finish line than the first site. The alleged epicenter of the alleged blast, aka ground zero in this picture, is between the tree and the dark green mailbox. This photo was taken 13 seconds after the second pyrotechnic display. The picture is grainy, but there are several so-called victims on the ground between the mailbox and the tree. There are several more to the left of the tree and behind the barricade fencing on the left. Altogether, there's around a dozen so-called victims near ground zero in this scene. But the stage of the second pyrotechnic site was wider than just the immediate area around ground zero. By the time this photo was taken, there were a number of so-called victims who were taken away or ran away from the immediate area of ground zero. Plus, there are some so-called victims who show up in the media footage who were probably never close to ground zero at all. From all the available footage, there are no more than 24 crisis actor victims on the entire stage of the second pyrotechnic display, which is to say nothing of their accomplices, the crisis actor heroes, the people who played the roles of the uninjured helpers. So, the official story is that there were 264 people injured at the Boston so-called bombing. But in reality, they kept the number of crisis actor victims a lot smaller than that. The number of crisis actor victims between both sites was somewhere around 70 people. And I should mention that quite a few of them appear to have missed out on the injury makeup and fake blood. There was certainly nowhere near 264 crisis actor victims, and there were 0 real victims, because the entire event and all its transpirings was not real. I'm going to shift gears for a few moments. The first thing you need to know is that the Boston unbombing was, in a nutshell, a disaster preparedness drill gone live.
Oh, okay, that was another part.
The first thing you need to know is that the Boston unbombing was, in a nutshell, a disaster preparedness drill gone live, meaning that the Boston unbombing was carried out by people within various federal and local government agencies that have been involved in running mega disaster preparedness drills across America for years now. But what's the use of telling you that the Boston unbombing was a large disaster drill gone live if you don't know what a large disaster drill looks like and what types of participants and props and effects are typically in use therein? In order to have the necessary context, we have to go over some of the basic elements of large disaster and emergency response training drills. So here we go. Even crisis actors get a coffee break. These are crisis actors at a recent large disaster drill in England. Fake wounds and fake gore are called moulage in the special effects industry and are an element of hyper-realistic emergency response drills. Moulage is our word for the day. Here's some more media coverage of the same drill in England. Lots of actors, lots of moulage. That cut leg looks like it hurts. Moulage is an art. Here's an amateur homemade moulage wound, made of various silicones and putties and paints. The funny comment says she's going to pick the kids up from school with that on her arm. Not bad for an amateur. Now let's see some work from the pros. Pretty realistic and pretty gross. This is professional work by the UK-based firm Trauma Effects. And more from Trauma Effects. And more from Trauma Effects, using an amputee crisis actor. This is an advertisement for silicone sleeves with prefabricated wounds. Silicone sleeves and silicone skin wraps and silicone patches are common elements in emergency response drills, as well as movie special effects makeup. Here's a different silicone sleeve you can buy from the same company. Collect all 12. But you should also get a fake blood pump kit if you're going to do the job professionally. Notice in the picture at the top that the fake wound is bleeding. Of course it is. Bleeding is an important part of trauma simulation. Why not visit Etsy and get yourself a silicone trauma simulation sleeve with a dynamic bleeding tube included? As the description says, this sleeve works with a HydraSim. And here's the HydraSim trauma bleeding simulation system. It's basically a small pack containing a fake blood supply and a pumping mechanism and some tubes. The ad reads, "A rugged, realistic, and affordable solution to the chaos caused by external hemorrhage."
Okay, last part, you guys, and I got that one guy on Watch the Water, the one that is good.
The 3 photos at the bottom are a few of the more sophisticated fake bleeding rigs on the market. Some of them are battery operated. The photo at the top is an emergency training company advertising the simulation effect of fake blood squirting frighteningly from a fake leg wound. You might have noticed the word squib under one of the pictures here. Squib is a word used for fake blood packets in the field of trauma simulation and also in the movie special effects industry. Any professional emergency response drill or military drill makes use of fake blood in a variety of forms: blood capsules, blood sponges, blood syringes, and blood squibs. A simple blood squib is a pouch designed to break with impact, and we've already seen some of the more complex squibs on the market. There are all kinds of squibs using various kinds of pump and tube assemblies. This is an article from Fox News about the benefits of hyper-realistic medical emergency training. The article reads, quote, "Makeup artists create combat wounds that bleed actively from hidden tubes," unquote. At the right is a still frame from the video accompanying this article, and it shows a crisis actor using the fake blood delivery system. I'm sure you get the point by now, but here's another product that includes a tube that sends fake blood squirting out of a gruesome moulage wound. Of course, you'd probably want to hide the tube a bit better than that in a disaster drill or a trauma simulation
What do you
drill.
guys think of this for clip on this?
Now, if you're doing an emergency drill, you don't really need a super duper realistic silicone moulage sleeve, nor would you need a particularly deceptively hidden fake blood tube delivery system. The photo at the top is a demo of a fake blood tube simply tucked under a flesh-colored sleeve and simulating bleeding through some holes in the sleeve. That wouldn't pass in a Hollywood movie. The silicone sleeve on the bottom, on the other hand, is quite convincing. You can hardly see the edges. Sneak a fake blood tube under there, and you're ready for the big screen. As for the Boston unbombing,
Under a
the
minute.
Boston unbombing was not quite ready for the big screen. This is Thorndike 7, capturing 5 seconds after the pyrotechnic display. Now we'll magnify the area of the picture where the blue arrow is pointing. This fellow is a crisis actor named Eric
Sorry about
Whaley,
that, Colby.
who, according to the official story, had his pants blown off by a shrapnel-filled bomb. We see no evidence from this angle that his legs are bleeding. We do, however, see an anomalous line all the way across the top of his left thigh, which is direct evidence, as several more photographs over the next several slides will prove, that he is wearing a thin silicone sleeve over his upper left thigh.
Okay, that's the end of it. Sorry about that, you guys. It's important, though, we hear about that. This one's 3 minutes.
The healthcare companies, loads of them right here. We want healthcare. Yes, we'd like to speak about getting healthcare here. Why can't I get healthcare here?
Wait.
Warning, you are under video surveillance. No trespassing, security armed. This is the strangest place I've ever been to get healthcare. Just a bunch of different places. Healthcare here, healthcare right here. Another healthcare company right here. There are 3 healthcare companies inside of this building right here in this room of 7C. Now we have another Helping Hands, Home Care LLC, another healthcare company. Present Help right here. We're looking for the best rates of healthcare here inside this building because we have so many options. Who can we talk to about getting the best healthcare?
I don't know.
No?
Sorry.
All right. We will not get any healthcare here. David, this is one of the stranger places I've ever been. Literally, healthcare every door you go to, yet nobody will give you a rate. How much money do you think has been funneled through this building?
Every year, I would say 50 to 60 million at least.
And finally, we were accepted into one of the daycare centers, and they actually took down our information to give us a rate.
Okay, sorry, I got a text. We seen that one.
Insects. They all get things done. Well, it tells Freemasons that we should stay busy. But what about the greater and deeper interpretations?
This
Now,
one
if we
okay?
accept that we're all just a bee and that our craft is, or even a society is a hive, we begin to understand that we can be an effective member of that hive and how society in general benefits where we're all working toward a common goal. How good and how pleasant it is, how when brethren dwell together in unity is, to Freemasons, a meaningful verse from the Old Testament. What does it have to do with the beehive? Consider that the beehive is not simply a group of fluttering insects, but it's instead a lodge. And when the brethren, the bees, if you will, when they get tasks, they have to complete them. The bees go out, they accomplish those tasks, they divide labor to work together for a common goal, and some gather pollen for food and make it through the lean times. They'll build the hive so that the next
All right, we'll get some good ones in here.
They're not just stealing government money. They're stealing groceries off your table, rent out of your pocket, and the stability of your family. That was the line that ricocheted through America like a warning shot. It hit every ear with the same cold, slicing truth. This wasn't a political scandal. This was personal. Because when $9 billion evaporates, someone has to pay for it. And spoiler alert, it sure as hell wasn't the people who stole it. Overnight, Minnesota wasn't just a state on the map anymore. It became the crime scene of the century, a giant red arrow pointing at a hole big enough to swallow a small country's annual budget. And the first question clawing its way through the public conscience was the one nobody wanted to say out loud. Who stole
5 hours
it?
ago.
And why does every trail lead back to the same circle of political power? This wasn't speculation. It wasn't rumor. It was the kind of seismic jolt that makes ordinary people realize they're living inside someone else's chessboard. The moment the state's financial office released the statement, short, sterile, and shaking with quiet panic, the entire region convulsed. Reporters flooded the Capitol like a breached dam. Helicopters hovered over government buildings. Anchors broke into regular programming mid-sentence. A local radio host shouted on live broadcast, $9 billion? Folks, that's not a budget error. That's not a misplaced decimal. That's a heist. And someone in our government signed the check. Very place on phones lit up across towns and
Who
suburbs.
knows, Paul?
Parents texted each other. Workers whispered during lunch breaks. Small business owners cursed under their breath. You could feel the distrust rising like black smoke. Almost immediately, the information battlefield ignited. Liberal networks rushed to the scene, acting like firemen trying to smother a wildfire with wet napkins. It's being exaggerated, they insisted. These numbers are preliminary. Let's not jump to conclusions. And the bat believe this place. One commentator even chuckled and said, 9 billion sounds dramatic, but we've seen clerical errors before. Clerical errors? The country collectively narrowed its eyes. Conservative outlets, meanwhile, tore off the muzzle and declared, this is the largest corruption scandal in Minnesota's history. Someone siphoned funds right out of the welfare system while families were struggling to buy groceries. This isn't incompetence, it's coordinated theft. So now, the fight wasn't just about numbers anymore. It was about morality, truth, survival. And every network, every pundit, every commentator picked a side long before the facts were even fully uncovered. When Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz finally stepped in front of the cameras, America leaned closer. Here was the man who should have been able to explain everything, or at the very least, calm a panicking population. Instead, he delivered one of the most tone-deaf performances in modern politics. Under the hot studio lights, Walz's jaw was tight, his eyes darting, his words controlled like a man trying to hold back a landslide. And yet he spoke with forced confidence. Let's be clear, the state of Minnesota bears no responsibility for this loss. Reporters stiffened. Even the cameras seemed to pause. He continued, smoothing his tie. We are dealing with federal loopholes, not state mismanagement. I won. And then he dropped the grenade. Minnesota's being targeted because we defend immigrant communities. Every analyst watching raised an eyebrow. He didn't explain the missing billions. He didn't offer any accountability. He didn't even acknowledge the public's fear. He just shoved the blame upward when $9 billion.
Okay, more news on Minnesota. Okay, let me know if we played this one yet. I don't know. 5 minutes.
And in this program, this $1 trillion we've spent, we give this money, as I appreciate it,
He has a white
to
suit on,
colleges
so I've
and
never seen that.
universities to encourage poor kids to go to college. Is that right?
To provide some of those kids who have not yet been exposed to what it takes to get ready to go to college.
Okay. To encourage poor kids to go to college, right?
Yes.
Okay. And given that we've spent $1 trillion, how many poor kids who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college have gone to college and graduated?
A significant number, I would imagine.
How many?
I don't know exactly.
Isn't that a question we should ask?
I think so, and I'll be happy to get back to you with that answer. You know, the other thing about the...
But wait, Madam Secretary, I'm not fussing at you. Do we have that number?
I don't think so.
I'm looking, we don't have it.
I don't think so, because there is
Well, if we were, so we've spent $1 trillion and we've given this money to universities and they're supposed to encourage poor kids to go to college. But we don't know how many poor kids went to college who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college and graduated, right?
Correct.
Well, what do your audits show?
Well, that's the issue. And I mentioned it when I was
Are you able to audit?
We're not. We're not able to audit, and there are constraints against the TRIO program for its accountability. The other issue with
Well, but I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't have much time. So we spent $1 trillion. We gave it to the colleges. We said encourage poor kids to go to college. We don't know how many kids went to college because you don't have the authority to audit. How do you know these universities are not just using the money to operate instead of encouraging poor kids to go to college?
I'm not sure.
You don't know how?
No.
Because you can't audit.
Correct.
You understand hope is not a strategy.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if you told the average American, we just spent $1 trillion of your money and we gave it to colleges and universities and we said encourage poor kids to go to college, but we don't know how many kids went to college who otherwise wouldn't have gone and who graduated. You understand the average American would ask us what planet we just parachuted in from, right?
That's right. You know, Senator, if I may, there's one other
This is
issue
an
on the
important
TRIO
one,
program.
right?
What we have
I'm going to
found
run
is,
out of time.
Time
You can make
We're
it fast.
take your time back then.
Let me ask you a question about our skirmish with Harvard. And I don't want to get into the merits. President Trump has said that Harvard is violating federal law and he's withholding their money. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Harvard has responded, we've never violated federal law, but if we did, we give you a pinky promise that we won't do it again. Is that right?
Yes.
And then President Trump said, okay, no offense, but, you know, I just want to be sure. So why doesn't Harvard, I will give Harvard the authority to appoint a monitor, pick whomever they want. The federal government has the right to veto the pick. So if they pick their brother-in-law, that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
And Harvard said, no, you just have to trust us. You have to accept their pinky promise. Is that basically what's going on?
Well, and not only that, but Harvard did respond to our request for negotiations with a lawsuit.
Well, but
we're in the throes of litigation.
If Harvard would just agree to a monitor, that would solve the problem, wouldn't it?
Might serve part of it. The provost is what vice provost that we've asked that would come on to be one of the monitors on that situation.
I'm way over. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Over $1 trillion we've spent.
Okay, I thought finally a good one there. We got Doug coming up, followed by Nick.
We're going to get into it right now. I'm Doug in Exile. Welcome, where I'm revealing this massive fight going on the right. And it appears that it's the Democrats trying to split MAGA. And if you can split MAGA, we will never win another election. I believe that's the end game. And that's my agenda, is to get us to unite. I believe against Islamic radicalism, which even Islamic moderates agree with. So here we go. This is Eyal Yaakov. They use Israel to distract you from, number one, Sharia courts in Dearborn, Michigan. That's where they conduct their own internal courts outside of our justice system. Billions of dollars being funneled to Somalia in Minneapolis. This is the funding of terror groups by the Democrat Party, washed through the Democrat Party. Qatar spending billions of dollars to buy American universities, which is already well documented. What has happened in Paris, London, and Brussels? So that's their agenda, to use anti-Israel to distract from that. Tucker Carlson came out and said, well, here's the two sides of Tucker Carlson. He's a major influencer, and I like him, but I can't understand his tack. This is Tucker Carlson in 2017 on Israel, and then it's going to cut to this last year in 2025. And so this has completely changed. Tucker Carlson's position has completely changed. I'm just saying what? We went into, is he being funded? Well, he appears to be independently wealthy, so it probably isn't that. It could be that he's trying to just maintain a giant audience, just we all have an ego. We all want to be popular. Maybe he just wants to remain popular with the anti-Israel folks.
So a lot of Americans are concerned about Sharia law.
Sure.
And they're concerned about polls that show a strikingly large number of Muslims would like to see it supplant civil law in the countries in which they live.
Sharia law is bad, Seth. I don't know if you've heard that. It's bad. It's worse than what's happening in New York and Detroit. It's just bad.
Said if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play right. You gotta know when to...
I don't know of a single Gulf country where it's illegal.
Me? Yeah. I
was upset about Trump's attacking Nigerian Muslims.
Survivors of these massacres that are now living in
I have to fast forward
awful,
Tucker 'cause I can't
horrendous
play 'em.
conditions. The 3 million Christians that have been displaced from their homes. Once you go talk to the survivors of the 7,000 Christians that have been massacred since January 1st, I don't know what game you're playing or who's influencing you or who's paying you behind closed doors to regurgitate a pro-Islamist narrative.
Yeah, everyone goes back to him being paid even though he's rich because it just doesn't make sense, his change. Here's Allie Beth Stuckey, a PSYOP alert. Guys, if you pay attention to this, it's because you've fallen for a very sophisticated propaganda strategy. She's quoting Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens that claim we're only against Islam because of this strategy. This is Basim Sabri, a Somali event in Minnesota. He says, we're conquering blocks in the 5th, 10th, 8th, and 9th precincts, and he owns Minnesota's Somali Mall.
One more thing that I wanted to say, that, this community is growing and we are getting a lot stronger here in South Minneapolis area, moving and conquering many of the blocks within the 5th precinct area or the 10th ward and 8th ward and the 9th as well.
We're conquering blocks. Okay. We're with the kafila scarf behind him and wearing it, the terrorist scarf. Here's Candace Owens. No matter how hard the GOP tries to make radical Islam happen, the base doesn't care about it. This is passive aggressive. This is what you call gaslighting. We are way more concerned about Israel, she declares. You can deny reality and scream about Tucker, but the party can no longer be governed by those who refuse to acknowledge the Zionist elephant in the room. We knew this was coming. Now there's a full embrace of Islam. Here's Sean McGuire on, this is Keir Starmer of the UK, right? I'm delighted that Allah Abd El Fattah is back in the UK and has been reunited with his loved ones, who must be feeling profound relief. I want to pay tribute to Allah's family and to all those who've worked and campaigned for this moment. I just want to go to this guy's Twitter. This is the guy that Keir Starmer is happy to have back in his country. Allah Abd El Fattah. He says, yes, I consider killing any colonists and especially Zionists heroic. We need to kill more of them. He says, police are not human. They don't have rights. We should just kill them all. Aslan. F that. Sounds like you need more fear. Random shooting of white males should convince them racism costs lives. So they're anti-police, just like Zoran Mamdani in New York. Here's a headline from the Minnesota Star Tribune earlier this month. They say Trump claims Minnesota lost billions to fraud, and the evidence to date isn't even close. The fraud allegations have been used as a justification for federal immigration enforcement against Minnesota's Somali population. That's our newspapers are pushing the agenda of the Democrat anti-cop socialists in America. Guys, this is just too much evidence here. Here's Sean Farash. He's a great Trump imitator. Candace Owens just said the base doesn't care about radical Islam. Once again, she's completely wrong. Radical Islam was voted the #1 threat to the U.S. in the TPUSA AmFest straw poll. #1 right here is radical Islam. So now their messaging is people care more about Zion. And frankly, they're distracted by the Epstein files, which they've also tied to Israel, by the way. Here's throwing some shade at Thomas Massie. Months ago was claiming a secret list exists and explicitly mentions hints at who these people are. But now magically he's saying he never once got a list of names, but it still exists. This was a giant scam, guys.
You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent...
How do you know their jobs and not know their name? Why not just tell us the name? Why are you covering up their names if you know it? He still claims he doesn't know their names.
...banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada.
I think they're all magicians because they've all turned invisible on us. It's a hoax. It's a scam. Waiting for the list of names so I can report them to you guys, but nothing. Just they released millions of documents, by the way. Still no names. Here's Alex Briswitz. This has to be a joke, right? No, it's not a joke. Breaking: Somalia is set to assume the presidency of the United Nations Security Council on January 1st of 2026. So we have that to look forward to. All those Somali people will get the power and cover of the United Nations Security Council. This historic shift grants Somalia crucial agenda-setting power to uphold territorial integrity and address regional stability at the highest level of global governance. Now here's Tucker says radical Islam isn't a threat. The director of national intelligence at TPUSA just last weekend, Tulsi Gabbard, says radical Islam is the greatest threat. So first we'll do Tucker.
TPUSA did a poll during AmFest, or I guess it was after AmFest, and they asked the audience, what they considered to be the greatest threat to America. TPUSA did a poll. I'm wondering where you think those sentiments are coming from. I mean, I've heard you say before, which government is it? And can you explain how that operation works? How is it, kind of lured into those?
From the Israeli government and its many defenders and informal employees in the United States, of course.
Chicago officials are sounding the alarm ahead of New Year's Eve. Law enforcement agencies warning this week that large celebrations, including fireworks events, could be an attractive target for terrorists, saying there are no specific threats, but they are monitoring risks such as vehicle ramming attacks or the use of drones.
It's the religion of peace once again, guys. Don't worry, they're only canceling New Year's Eve celebrations in fear. I smell something. Do you? Let me know in the chat below what you guys think.
So I had to skip that because I don't want to play Tucker at all. So as soon as he gets on, I have to fast forward it.
Warned. Consider yourself warned. I want you to hear the
7
president
minutes.
speaking on the issue.
Referenced the lower amount of illegal drugs that are coming by sea, and you just said that you're going to start that same program on land soon. Are you just referring to Venezuela, or are you referring to other countries in Latin America?
Anywhere drugs are pouring in, anywhere, not just Venezuela. No.
Not just Venezuela. Anywhere drugs are pouring in. So Colombia, I do believe the quote was, he better watch his, you know what, because he's manufacturing stuff there and sending it to the U.S. So this is fascinating because as much as the Democrats want to flip out about this, don't forget, he actually has the legal power to declare fentanyl, for example, as a weapon of mass destruction because it's destroying so many lives here in America. And that's what he did the other day. And now he's using that to say, okay, I'm going to put up a naval blockade. And so we've got a naval blockade unlike anything you've ever seen there in Venezuela. I mean, this is a really, really, really big deal, guys. And something that I think, is getting overlooked. Let me share with you some of the president's comments today on this, because he's not messing around, as they say, really and truly not messing around. In fact, he sent out a very lengthy, very long Truth Social post that said Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before, until such time as they have returned to the United States of America, all the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us. The illegitimate Maduro regime is using oil from these stolen oil fields. And by stolen oil fields, by the way, I just want to point out that the U.S. actually used to own a lot of that land there. And Chavez kicked us all out and said, don't come back. And so we lost all of those oil fields as a result of that. They're using oil from these stolen oil fields to finance themselves, drug terrorism, human trafficking, murder, kidnapping, for the theft of our assets, and for many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking. The Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Therefore, today, I am ordering a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going into and out of Venezuela. The illegal aliens and criminals that the Maduro regime has sent into the U.S. during the weak and inept Biden administration are being returned to Venezuela at a rapid pace. America will not allow criminals, terrorists, or other countries to rob, threaten, or harm our nation. And likewise, we will not allow a hostile regime to take our oil, our land, and other assets. So this is really interesting. He's referring it to as ours, because don't forget, American companies bought that land and bought those rigs and owned that property down there. And it was the Venezuelan Chavismo regime that kicked them all out. We're not going to allow that. It all must be returned to the United States immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So this is a big, big, big deal. And I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia, was on CNN the other day, and he was being asked about Venezuela, and he actually said the Biden administration made a huge mistake by, for example, allowing Maduro to continue on there when he was not elected. The people elected someone else, and yet Maduro said, well, forget about that, I'm going to stay. And then he said, that was a mistake. And why do we care? We care, I'm going to level with you, because of oil. It's home to the largest proven oil reserves outside of Saudi Arabia. This stuff is thick, it's tar-like, it's not efficient, but we actually have the technology to make it efficient. We actually have the technology to make it thinner and more usable. And we actually had a big presence down there until Chavez kicked us out some 20 years ago. So Donald Trump remembers that, the companies remember that, and they want it back. And this is where we are right now. Plus, you get a twofer out of it, right? Because, they're really breaking Cuba in the process. Indeed, indeed, indeed. I want to turn, though, for just a minute here to the economy overall, because as much as, people are saying, the economy, affordability, you heard the president recently say that's kind of just a, what? He's not entirely wrong. Let's go to my friend Rick Santelli, because he almost fell off his chair on CNBC when we got the read on GDP. GDP report, really strong. I mean, this comes on the heels of that great inflation report just the other day, right? His colleague, Steve Leisman. They don't always get along, right? It's like Steve's on one side, Rick's on the other, and Steve literally almost fell out of his chair because it was 2.7% inflation. Everybody thought we were going to get 3.3. 2.7 is really good, really, really, really good. And you know what else is really good? 4.3% on GDP. Let's see if we can see it. Maybe we can't. That's okay. Let's see. We may actually be playing in the shorts feed for you, because it was pretty funny. He did Santelli was sort of priceless. Ooh, I think I do have it. What do you know? I do have it for you. So I want to show you this with Rick Santelli. Zoom, 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 baby. Okay. Remember those words. Zoom, zoom, zoom. We're going to the moon. this is sticky. Let's see. Check out this reporter and his excitement over massive GDP growth.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. 4.3%.
4.3%. Zoom, zoom, zoom indeed. Right? Making perhaps those $2,000 checks more viable. I mean, everybody's like, okay, are we going to get them? Are we going to get them? Are we going to get them? $2,000 for each and every American. Well, middle income and lower income. I don't think that the higher incomes are going to get those, but it's been sort of Trump's baby, and it likely will become a big issue as we go into midterms. How do we sort of redistribute the money that that has been gained thanks to a growing economy and the terrorists themselves?
Okay, I got one more, Trish, and then we'll get to next video.
Somali-owned home care agency. The new indictment zeroes in on the autism program called Early Intensive Developmental and Behavioral Intervention, or EIDBI, and zeroed in on housing stabilization programs. In the case of the housing stabilization programs, the Assistant U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson says defendants claim to provide housing assistance to people with mental illness or drug and alcohol problems, and they say the defendants submitted claims, provided no service. Thompson used the term fraud tourism, claiming two men from Philadelphia learned there was easy money in Minnesota, so they flew into the state, set up shop, and started billing the government. As far as defrauding the autism programs, Thompson introduced one new case of a defendant recruiting parents, getting bogus documents for a diagnosis of autism for the child. The parents would then get a kickback from the money intended to treat the autistic child.
What we're seeing is programs that are just entirely fraudulent. These aren't companies that are providing some services but overbilling Medicare or Medicaid. These are companies that are providing essentially no services. They're essentially shell companies created to defraud the program, created to submit on a wholesale level.
Now, the housing stabilization program, for one, was created with a prediction it would cost $2.6 million annually. It ballooned to $21 million in 2021 and exploded to $104 million in 2020.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I need a bar chart for that. Look at that, you guys. 2.6 million to 21 million to 104 million. That's just another part of it, right? The housing stabilization program. Did you also hear his part about how they migrated to Minnesota because they realized the fraud was easier to do there? Unbelievable.
Four. All but a handful of the defendants thus far are part of the Minnesota Somali community.
Okay, Ilhan, that would be your district. That would be your district. And it's not looking good for you. It's not looking good for Waltz. It's not looking good for Ellison. Democrat Minnesota politicians.
Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison. We see a web of connections between them and those directly involved in the fraud. For example, Ilhan Omar alleged enabling introducing the 2020 Meals Act, which was ultimately subject to fraud. Held a campaign victory party at the Safari restaurant. That's where one of the men who run that restaurant has associations to the convicted individuals. And then there's Tim Walz. House oversight investigation role in his role as governor, or Keith Ellison, the attorney general. His job is to enforce the law in Minnesota, but instead he's getting donations after meeting with the Feeding Our Future representatives. The Feeding Our Future, the biggest known yet part of this entire fraud.
I think we need some serious audits. Yeah. And maybe we need to look at removing one Ilhan Omar, if she's in fact, all right, like innocent until proven guilty. We need the audits. Okay, guys, we really need the audits. And I guess my question keeps going back to this feeding the nation thing. That it was, I mean, like multiples and multiples. It was 60 some odd people, all from her district. Okay, were involved in. And it's amazing because on the day that she announced her marriage to Timmy, there's another Timmy. Timmy must be a really popular name in Minnesota. So Timmy, who left his wife Beth, that was a bad trade. I've never even seen Beth, but I'm just guessing that was a bad trade, Timmy. Okay, so Timmy, who, well, I mean, he's making plenty of money, right? Because now he works for her campaign and she pays him plenty. She went from being worth $200,000 to being worth $30 million overnight. How's that for a gig? Yeah, you pay hubby, Timmy, kind of well, and there you go. So Timmy was the campaign manager, and then it gets paid as a political consultant by her team and then by other teams. He claims he's a private equity investor, but I looked at his website, and that doesn't look like a private equity investor to me. That looks like a political consultant. So, they got one hand in the cookie jar. They have her out there in Congress, and then one hand in the cookie jar. You get Timmy doing all the other things right behind the scenes, right? So people are calling this into question. And it's just fascinating to me that on the day they announced their marriage, she also debuted her big, fabulous bill, Feeding the Future. And Feeding the Future wound up with, basically costing U.S. taxpayers $250 million. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, wow. So now you've got Randy Fine out of Florida telling Axios on Wednesday of last week that he is actively considering forcing a vote to expel Representative Ilhan Omar from Congress. Let's just get rid of her altogether because she doesn't belong there because of some of the things that she has said that, let's face it, guys, are very anti-American. Very anti-American. And now you couple on this whole thing where it seems as though she was, well, I don't know. I want to be very, very careful with this. And this is why I want to see an audit. And I want to know if one single dollar went back to her, okay? Because this money was being fraudulently obtained in her district. And we do know that some of the people in her district were helping to bankroll her campaign. So, you add 1 and 1 and I'm sorry, you get 2. So she's, by default, in some way, shape, or form implicated in this. And I don't think we should just look the other way. I think that a real investigation, and I know the feds are doing this, it's just that Pam Bondi has a lot on her plate, shall we say. And, the locals there, the U.S. Attorney's Office is looking into this, and they're finding new stuff as we just went through every single day, right? With now the estimate being for $9 billion. I mean, unbelievable. This is what prosecutors are finding. So
about 2 minutes.
How much did she know? Did she profit from it? I realize that they're saying, oh, the money, some of it went back overseas, but you can't necessarily say it went direct to terror organizations. I'll tell you what I know because I've done a lot of reporting on terrorist financing. In fact, one of my documentaries was nominated for an Emmy Award. It dealt with money that was coming out of Latin America in sort of a no man's land between Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil, known as Ciudad del Este in Paraguay. And there was all this money that was going straight back to Hamas and going back to Hassan Nasrallah. In fact, Nasrallah even at one point sent a thank you note to one of these known terrorist financiers after I did my story on CBS News, by the way, interestingly, back in the day. The Treasury Department came out and named some of these very people as known terrorist financiers, and they were cut off from doing any kind of business. They were sanctioned effectively from doing business in the U.S. So I know a lot about this. And one of the things that you just have to be aware of is something called the Hawala system. And this is what makes it very hard to trace some of this money laundering within the Middle Eastern culture, and specifically within the Middle Eastern culture that lends itself to terrorist financing, because you don't have an easy paper trail. And that's where it gets really challenging. And the Treasury is having to roll up its sleeves and really dig in and figure this out. I know that Treasury Secretary Scott Brennan was on a couple weekends ago with Margaret Brennan on CBS News, and she was really pushing him. And he's like, look, we just started this investigation. She's like, well, you have no leads to terror financing, right? And he's like, we just started like a week ago. I suspect, just given what I know about the Hawala system, and that there's sort of a percentage taken off that goes to the cause, so to speak, right? To the cause. That goes to the cause. You would have to assume that, in fact, some of it did go back to these nefarious sources. And so this is what's going to put one Ilhan Omar in a very, very, very bad spot. And the sooner the better on this lady, because she really does not belong there in my estimation. I mean, she's just look, she's an elected official. I get it. She shouldn't be elected. And if she's done something illegal, well, then that needs to get called out, period. End of story. It's pretty darn simple.
Yep.
Okay.
Get a good one too. So we got 2 Trish. I got 3 more to finish off with Sue. And I'll do Nick. I can't remember if we played this one already.
I think most of us would agree on that it's not right to defraud the government. Trump is actually on trial right now, they say, because he falsified business documents. Well, if you guys are familiar with Stephanie Clifford, aka Stormy Daniels, they were dumb enough to put her on the witness stand this week. Now, she got up there and she made an absolute fool of herself. She tried to make jokes. The jury really didn't.
Is this the same one earlier, you guys?
And they muddled through it. But the cross-examination was absolutely phenomenal. She agreed to the fact that she owes Donald Trump $500,000. So do you think that she might be just a tad bit motivated to help get him in jail if she owes him $500,000? I would say. In addition to that, they asked, do you like Donald Trump? I hate Donald Trump. I can't stand him. Well, do you think she might have a little bit of motivation to lie against him? Then they bring out the letter. Well, I don't remember writing that. You don't remember writing the letter? That's interesting. That's your signature, isn't it? Well, absolutely. So this woman has already absolutely destroyed Alvin Bragg's case. But then in addition to that, we're looking at the situation unfold, and Michael Avenatti rears his head. Now, Michael Avenatti actually throws a little bit of light on this. And now we get to see what type of justice system we actually have. Because Michael Avenatti says, yeah, the only way that she was able to get away with not paying Donald Trump, and now she says she's never going to give him a dime. She says this on the witness stand. I don't intend to ever pay Donald Trump a dime. Well, she got paid for doing a documentary in which she trashed Donald Trump. But then to make matters worse, she hid that money, falsified documents in order to show that she had no money and she couldn't afford to pay Donald Trump. Well, where's Letitia James in all of this? Why isn't she going and confiscating her stuff? Why isn't she threatening to put her in jail? Why isn't Alvin Bragg filing charges against her?
We did one earlier.
Charges because she falsified business documents. I want to see some action. If this is what we're talking about, and we've reached a place where we say nobody is above the law, then Stephanie Clifford needs to be put in jail. She needs to be charged with a felony because she has done everything that they're accusing Trump of doing. But she's an absolute awful person, and she showed it on the stand, and I'm glad that they were able to get to the bottom of it. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, got two more, then we'll get Nick.
We've got to wake up and see what is going on right now in the state of Minnesota. I can't even begin to understand why this is not a bigger story and why more people are not paying attention to what's going on in Minnesota. If you think this is a Minnesota issue, you're sadly mistaken. This is an American issue. Your dollars, American taxpayer dollars, federal taxpayer dollars are being used to funnel money to the Somali community, and many of those dollars are winding up back in Somalia, funding terrorist organizations like Al-Shabaab. Minnesota receives tens of billions of dollars every year, and it's now a 70% chance that Tim Walz goes to jail for this. Now, this is a man who was very close to becoming second in command, the vice president of the United States. This is a man that the thing I can't quite understand, think about this. There had to have been vetting that was done by the Kamala Harris campaign. Had to have been. So what it tells me is that either they are completely incompetent, which I could possibly believe after spending $1 billion on a losing campaign, but I lean more to the fact that they were complicit in this. it is clear now that either the money has been, well, we know the money that was misused was being funneled back to the Democrat Party. We understand that. The Democrat Party of Minnesota has been taking money from you, the taxpayer, funneling it back into their own pockets. This system has been clear. I lived there. I watched it. I watched during COVID when billions of dollars were being spent in order to fund programs like daycares where there were no children ever going to, that the doors were never even opened. It was just a front where they had ride services set up to get kids and get Somali families to and from doctor's appointments. And they never documented a single ride, yet the state of Minnesota was pumping money to them. We're now over $8 billion that have been stolen from the taxpayers of America. These are your dollars. And Tim Walz stands up defiant, even after it has been proven. Affidavits have been signed that whistleblowers that brought this to the state's attention were shut down and even fired from their job simply for saying there's a problem here. It goes even deeper that during COVID, the Feed My Children program that funneled hundreds of millions of dollars in COVID funding for feeding Somali children that were less privileged, who normally would have been fed at school. They took hundreds of millions of dollars and never fed a single child. When those people were brought to trial, they were found guilty. You can look this up. They were found guilty by a jury of their peers. And when came time to sentencing, the judge threw it out, saying that the evidence was circumstantial. When have you ever heard of people going before a jury, the jury finding them guilty, and the judge saying, you know what, never mind what the jury said, you guys are free to go? During that time, there was also affidavits signed and stories of people in the Somali community finding the addresses of jurors and offering them bags of cash to find the folks not guilty. Guys, there is a whole criminal enterprise going on with money winding up in Somalia in the hands of terrorist organizations. And Tim Walz has been on the front center of all of it. Tim Walz is going to be tried for this. Tim Walz is going to jail for this. We need to pay closer attention, because if Tim Walz gets away from this, blue states all over the country will continue their campaigns, and they will continue to siphon money from the American people. We have to wake up, but this is humongous, and I believe it will wind up in people going to prison as a result of fraud. Comment below. Let me know what you.
Okay, I'm gonna play Nick, and then I'm gonna finish off with a 9-parter with that YouTube lady. It's been a couple weeks, but I don't think we never saw it. Okay, it's a 9-parter clip, so we'll get Nick's video in. Chico.
Interesting. And when you look at the fact that Ilhan Omar has amassed something like $30 million over the last year or two, this is the guy that's behind it, okay? And this is a white man, which I find very interesting because of the things Ilhan Omar has said about white men.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
So while Ilhan Omar's lecturing the public about how they need to be more afraid of white men because they're dangerous, murderers apparently, she's over here shacking up with one and is married to one. I mean, can you believe it? The woman that commit campaign fraud and tax fraud and immigration fraud is also a hypocrite. I mean, that's just shocking to me. I don't know about you, but guys, we're going to talk a lot about her husband in this video because, see, the New York Post noticed something very interesting, and that is the fact that Ilhan Omar's husband's $30 million investment firm has quietly been scrubbing names from its website and removing their biographies entirely, as the squad member faces mounting questions over her sudden wealth amid Minnesota's welfare fraud. So it seems like people are starting to make a connection here. Because on one hand, day after day, we're finding out more and more about this massive Somalian fraud scandal where something like $9 billion of taxpayer money has been stolen by the Somalian community. And on the other hand, we have Ilhan Omar's financial disclosures right around the same time period showing that she went from a negative $65,000 net worth to now being worth something like $6 to $30 million. And nobody seems to be able to figure out how she amassed so much money in such a short period of time. And she gets really, really mad when you bring this up. On multiple occasions, she has denied that she is a millionaire, saying to Fox Business Insider earlier this year, quote, since getting elected, there's been a coordinated right-wing disinformation campaign claiming all sorts of wild things, including the ridiculous claim I am worth millions of dollars, which is categorically false. I am not a millionaire. So she denies it, but here's her financial disclosure that was filed May 14th, 2025. And you can see the value of two assets. One is Est Crew LLC, which is a California winery valued between $1 and $5 million. And here is Rose Lake Capital, her husband's investment firm, valued somewhere between $5 and $25 million. So the value of her assets, according to her own financial disclosure report, is somewhere between $6 and $30 million. Now, these same assets were worth practically nothing the year prior and have somehow ballooned into the millions. And everybody wants to know how, especially now that all the fraud is being revealed in Minnesota. Because people like me suspect that there may, just maybe, might be a connection between those two things. And it seems like Ilhan Omar is a little bit worried about people making that connection because, as we said in the beginning, her husband's investment firm is removing high-level people from its website and scrubbing their biographies and any evidence that they were ever a part of the investment firm in the first place. So this is the New York Post article. Embattled Representative Ilhan Omar's husband's venture capital firm quietly scrubbed key officer details, including former Obama officials, as scrutiny grows over the family's skyrocketing wealth, the Post has learned. Omar went from nearly broke to being worth up to $30 million in just a year, as a massive up to $9 billion fraud scheme involving the Somali community in her district unfolded right under her nose in Minnesota. Close to 90 people have been charged so far, including at least 3 with direct ties to the lefty squad member, though she has not been charged. So think about it. We have a $9 billion fraud scandal. We have Ilhan Omar amassing $30 million, and at least three of the people involved in the fraud are directly linked to Ilhan Omar, 2 of which we now know have directly contributed to her campaign, totaling something like $75,000, and 1 hosted her victory party after she was elected in 2018. So there's 3 connections, direct connections, between Ilhan Omar and the fraudsters. Now, here's something I've pointed out in previous videos, but very few people seem to be aware of this very important fact. The socialist Ilhan Omar was the one that introduced the legislation, the Meals Act in Congress in 2020, which is the legislation that relaxed the oversight of government-sponsored children's meals during the pandemic, which critics say allowed fraudsters to claim they served millions of meals without verification while pocketing millions of dollars in government subsidies. So let's add that to the pile of evidence. Ilhan Omar was the very person that introduced the bill which made it possible for these people to steal all the money. And then right after that legislation went into effect and the Somalians started stealing millions of dollars, Omar's husband, political consultant Tim Minette, decided to launch an investment firm called Rose Lake Capital in 2022, a venture capital management firm. Now, in her financial disclosures in 2023, the company was valued at basically $0. I believe the exact numbers were somewhere between $1 and $1,000 in 2023. But then somehow, in a year's time, the valuation ballooned to between $5 and $25 million in just a year, and somehow claims to have already amassed $60 billion in assets under management, an amount that many money managers on Wall Street only dream of. There's a lot of strange things going on, said Paul Kamener, counselor to the National Legacy and Policy Center. She was basically broke when she came into office, and now she's worth perhaps up to $30 million. She needs to come clean on these assets. Now, here's where things get really interesting and juicy, because between September and October, the names and bios of Rose Lake Capital's 9 officers and advisors were removed from the website. And the names of these people that were involved in her husband's investment firm have some very, very interesting connections. For instance, a lobbyist and former Obama ambassador to Bahrain named Adam Areli, former senator and Obama ambassador to China, Max Baucus, DNC Finance Chair Associate Alex Hoffman, former DNC Treasurer William DeRoe, and here's the most interesting of them all, former ex-CEO of Amalgamated Bank, Keith Mestrich, who once described Amalgamated Bank as the institutional bank of the Democratic Party. So yes, you heard that correct. One of Rose Lake Capital's 9 officers was the former CEO of the institutional bank of the Democratic Party. And so don't you think it's a strange coincidence that as soon as people start getting arrested for being part of this Somalian fraud scandal, that Ilhan Omar's husband's investment firm removes the evidence that the investment firm was riddled with a bunch of Obama lobbyists and ambassadors and people with high-level connections to the DNC. They, for some reason, don't want you to know who was a part of this investment firm that is mysteriously ballooned to a valuation of $30 million. And I just find that very suspicious. Now, here's the other piece of the puzzle, because remember, from her financial disclosures, there was 2 businesses that had $1 million valuations. One was the Rose Lake Capital investment firm. The other was a California winery. This was her husband's other business, a California winery that previously faced fraud allegations and was declared a failed venture in 2023, was suddenly valued between $1 and $5 million in 2024, a windfall of almost 10,000%. So let's get this straight. He had a California winery that was basically abandoned, declared a failure in 2023, but somehow ballooned to $5 million in 2024. How does that make sense? It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. Something very suspicious is going on here. It says that the business went belly up when one of the investors into the winery sued Ilhan Omar's husband in October 2023, accusing him of swindling him of almost $1 million as he fraudulently misrepresented that S Crew LLC, the name of the winery.
If I were him, I'd bundle my home and auto and pick up the real victory savings.
Are you?
Was a legitimate company. So this guy invested in the company and then found out that it was basically a shell company. And so he sued Ilhan Omar's husband, and Minette, her husband, claimed that he simply struggled to build a business during the pandemic. The case settled out of court in November. But again, somehow this business, after it went belly up and he admittedly failed to build a successful business during the pandemic, increased its valuation from nothing to $5 million in the course of a year. And so to wrap this up in conclusion, let's summarize what we've got. In 2019, Ilhan Omar took office, and she was worth negative $65,000 when you combine her car loan and her student loans. Then in 2020, she passed legislation which enabled the Somalian community to defraud the American taxpayer of something like $9 billion. She received multiple campaign contributions from the fraudsters and has connections to at least 3 of them. And in 2024, her financial disclosures show that she amassed like $30 million in the matter of a year through 2 shell companies effectively. One of them is absolutely a shell company, the winery. It was a failed business that got sued by an investor who said that he was swindled and it was never a legitimate company in the first place, but is now worth $5 million. The other one is an investment firm that claims to manage $60 billion, which, by the way, is absolutely impossible. And its advisory board was filled with a bunch of Obama advisors and ambassadors and people with high-level connections to the DNC's fundraising operations. And then after people started getting arrested, they removed and scrubbed the evidence that those people were ever part of her investment firm or her husband's investment firm. All of this smells very, very suspicious. And while we're told that the Trump DOJ is investigating the fraud scandal in Minnesota, I really think that we need to probe Ilhan Omar's husband's companies and find out if there's any connection to the fraud that has occurred in Minnesota. And so if you agree and you want to see Ilhan Omar investigated and held accountable.
Okay, that was Nick's video for today. All right, the last one will be 9 clips. Let me know and I'll stop it and I'll finish off with something else. But it's the YouTube lady, but she's on TikTok also. I got it.
You know what they're going to do? They're going to end up stealing. And there's going to be more prisoners. Oh, that's so smart. That's so smart. Yeah, you're stunting American growth.
Oh, hold on. Stunting American growth? Call me naive. I mean, I'm sure you will in the comments. But how does asking certain groups of welfare recipients to work at least 80 hours per month in order to continue to receive benefits, how is that stunting growth of Americans by asking you to work 20 hours a week part-time? Anyway.
You're stunting American growth, and my generation's getting fucked because of you. And I'm sick and tired of it. People have like this, but there's so many people who, they for their SNAP benefits, they use it, but they don't actually need it. And this, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care if a few of them use the system. How can you not care about other people? Do something about it. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready. Like, if I need to, I'll defend what I believe is morally right.
No system should allow abuse of it. If you are not abusing the system and you're accurately reporting everything to the state, what are you so worried about? The fact that you might have to work 80 hours a month? And that's only a group of people. That's only for parents that have children over the age of 7 or able-bodied adults between the ages of 54 and 64. It's just being asked that you contribute to society for using taxpayer dollars. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I mean, we have talked about this before. Welfare benefits should be supplemental income, not the only income.
You don't want them to have access.
Okay, part 1.
My disability checks is on hold. My cash benefits is not coming no more. They're still pending. It is the taxpayer's job to pay for my kids to eat and for my kids to be taken care of. I have over 2,000.
I'm sorry. It's the taxpayer's job to take care of your kids? Hold on. I got to go back. Is that what she said?
It is the taxpayer's job to pay for my kids to eat and for my kids to be taken care of.
Yep, that's what she said.
I have over 2,000 followers on TikTok, and I can't get not one person to send me 50 cents. If you're watching this,
I have 2,000 followers on TikTok, and I can't get one person to send me 50 cents. Oh boy.
Video, and you can't send me nothing, I'm blocking you. I'm blocking you. 50 cents. My kids have not eaten in 5 days. It is a tax.
Okay, now it is not funny that her kids haven't eaten in 5 days. If that's actually the truth, if she's not just, crashing out on TikTok here, she needs to do something to feed her kids, because if she thinks that it's the taxpayer's responsibility, or if it's her 2,000 followers on TikTok's responsibility to send her money via Cash App, Venmo, whatever she's trying to get, there's a problem. There's an entitlement problem. Why are people having children thinking that it's not their responsibility to feed their kids, but taxpayers? This is why so many people are crashing out right now about this bill and the fact that work requirements are now tightened. There are a lot of people that have been living off of the system for so long that they feel entitled to it. And now they're learning, oh, this might not last forever. And they are pissed.
It's day 5 and I have.
Okay, part 3.
Down to $350. Now, what am I supposed to do? So I literally just got this piece of mail today saying that due to new policy changes from the
$2,800 a month. How do you eat $2,500 a month worth of food at the grocery store? That's a lot of money in food.
So I literally just got this piece of mail today saying that due to new policy changes from the Trump administration, all this shit, whatever, that all these cuts and whatever he's doing over there, now they're telling me I have to go work. Now I have to go do all this. Well, I literally got 5 kids. Okay. I'm trying to sit here and spend time with them. I'm not trying to go work, 50, 60 hours a week so I can pay bills.
Okay, this guy has to be a rage bait. He has to be a rage baiter. I got 5 kids. I'm not trying to work to have to pay bills. I'm trying to spend time with them. He actually said he's trying to spend time with his 5 kids. He doesn't want to have to go work to pay his bills. That he has to be a rage baiter. This guy can't be for real. There are so many people that don't even see their kids. I have a sister that has 2 children she barely sees because she is the head of the OR. She barely gets to see her kids. She works so much. And then when a lot of the times when she gets home, her kids are already asleep or her son is at school. She barely gets to see her kids. The audacity of some people, man, I tell you.
Trump has cut my food stamps from $2,800 down to $350. Now, what am I supposed to do? So I literally just got this piece of mail today saying that due to new policy changes from the
2,800.
Hey, that was the part. Yep, Paul, you're right on that. What happened?
It's Republicans. So we already know. Let's just hope.
That's what people are getting twisted too. It's not about not helping people. It's about reform and trying to get the right people the help that they really need. Because there's only so much money to be given out. And if that money is being given to people who don't really need it, or to people that aren't even American citizens, we don't have the money to take care of our own. I think she's missing the point entirely.
Let's just hope and pray that somebody in their right mind come to their senses. You feel me? But it's the fact that y'all happy about this shit. Oh, now y'all can get y'all lazy ass up and stop living off our money for free. Y'all think people who receive government assistance don't work?
No, people aren't happy about Americans struggling. That's not what it's about. That is an entirely skewed perception of what people are thinking and feeling about this bill and the reform. Now, I could just be speaking for myself. I'm sure you'll let me know down in the comments below if I'm way off base. People are not happy about people who really need these benefits losing them. People are happy that those individuals who have been exploiting the system for so long are not going to be exploiting taxpayer dollars anymore. That's what it's about.
I'm only going.
Okay, we're halfway there, you guys.
I increased my rent because I started working. They increased my rent. They have now deducted my food stamps. So they increased my rent. They tell me I can't qualify for benefits and I can't get child support or anything because my husband's in prison. So I'm a single mom with no help, no family, no nobody, no nothing. And now I just got a letter. I'm just quite pleased with it, honey. It says now they have reduced my food stamps from $523 a month for 2 people to now $320 a month for 2 people. So that's great. Because, of course, the reason is because I make too much money. But I guess I shouldn't complain because at least I get them. Because a lot of people, I've been ranting about this stuff for a couple of days now, and a lot of people are telling me how they're not even getting them, and I don't know how people are surviving out here. And then everyone wants to comment, well, your hair and nails are done. First of all, my hair has not been done in a long time. And when it did get done, honey, that was my sponsor who did it because, you know, I'm a recovering addict. And, honey, she's relapsed now, obviously. And the hair clip, this is a clip that I paid $6 for at Shein. The eyelashes and stuff, they come from the Dollar Tree or in bulk from Shein for $3.
Can we also please stop using someone's appearance as a reason why they shouldn't be getting Section 8, food stamps, Medicaid? Because I feel like that happens a lot. Just because you might take pride in your appearance, it doesn't mean that you have a lot of money. Just because it looks like you have fake eyelashes or hair extensions or you get your hair colored or you're wearing nails, all of that can be done very, very inexpensively. I think there is this stigma where if someone is on welfare, that they have to look like they don't give a shit about themselves. And so if it looks like someone takes pride in their appearance, well, then that must mean that they have money. And that is absolutely not the case. Like she was saying, her hair hadn't been colored. She was wearing a hair clip from Shein that she got for $6. She was wearing Dollar Tree eyelashes. You can get fake nails at Dollar Tree now, nail glue and all. You can get an entire box of fake nails at Dollar Tree. Make it look like you went and got a manicure. Just doing it yourself at home. There's a lot of people DIYing beauty now because they want to take pride in their appearance, but they might not have a lot of money. Fun fact, there is something called the lipstick effect. It's a phenomenon that suggests that during economic downturn, people will cut back on some expenses to spend more on luxury items like cosmetics. We know this because the revenue of makeup companies tend to go up whenever there's an economic downturn. And that's because makeup is seen as an accessible and affordable way to look good and boost confidence during stressful times. And in some circumstances, the worse we feel, the better we try to make ourselves look on the outside. So that's just my 2 cents there, because I do see that a lot on social media, that just because somebody looks like they don't need any sort of financial assistance, they shouldn't get financial assistance. But just because you don't look like you don't need it doesn't mean you don't.
Well, it just... Okay, we got 4 more clips, you guys. Back tomorrow night. Part 6.
$738. That's supposed to support a household of 3. For a job that barely even support my basic needs now. Like, inflation is high and the groceries is high as shit. I'm pissed off, like I'm mad as shit, because how the fuck am I supposed to survive off that shit? So when y'all see me in the mother store stealing stuff and that shit in my motherfucking bag, nicely act like you don't see shit and mind your motherfucking business, because this shit is going in my motherfucking bag, and I'm walking out this motherfucking store with my motherfucking chest up and my head held high, and I dare you.
Okay. First of all, she needs to not be ranting while driving. Can we just say that? She's literally ranting while driving. Second of all, I understand and I feel her pain. When you're used to getting a certain amount of money and then it gets cut down, your immediate thought is, how am I supposed to feed myself? How am I supposed to feed my family? But here's the thing. All of us that aren't on food stamps have that same fear. All of us. At least you get a little bit of food stamps. There's a lot of us that don't. There's a lot of us that have to pay all of our food costs out of pocket. And there's a lot of people that wonder every single month how they're going to be able to feed their families on their salaries. And so I'm sorry, but some of these people that are crashing out about how they had one amount that they used to get and now they have a less amount, I'm sorry, yeah, food is expensive, but there's a lot of people that don't get benefits at all that literally have $10 to spend on groceries a week and they get nothing. They don't qualify. At least you qualify to get a little bit. So these people that come on social media just to bitch because they lost some of their food stamps, I don't understand why they think that they're so entitled to not have to pay for any groceries out of pocket at all, when the majority of us in the United States pay for all of our food out of pocket. Why do you think that you shouldn't have to work to make more money to buy your own groceries because your food stamps got cut? I don't understand the entitlement. I don't.
They cut my motherfucking food stamps to $85 from $738. How the fuck? That's supposed to support a household of 3. For a job.
We got part 7, 8, and 9.
Grocery day.
You already know what's going on.
EBT.
It don't matter. And
Right.
who all got anything negative to say, you will be blocked and your ass will not be on our page because we're not with all that. We here to support what we do to feed our 6 kids that we have at home. We also do have everything
Is legit
documented at the food stamp office. So we don't need people to just say what they don't know nothing about us. You know what I'm saying? So let's keep it cordial.
Come with us on our shopping trip.
Let's go to Kroger's first.
Yep. We don't know what our budget is. We're just here to shop. So
What do you mean you don't know what your budget is? Don't you only have so much on your food stamp card? See, I like the fact that they are, they're like, let's go food stamp shopping, but don't come at us because we've reported everything legitimately. So good for them. Some of y'all might think that I am a food stamp beneficiary hater. I'm not. Again, I've been on food stamps twice. I just don't like people who game the system and lie to take advantage of taxpayer funds. But if you are someone who is in need of help and you are accurately reporting everything, I am so glad that the benefits are there for you to use.
Hey guys.
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
Hey. Grocery day.
You already know.
Okay, 2 more, you guys. Part 6. Part 8.
Enter the last 4 digits of your card number. Enter your PIN. Your SNAP balance is $2. Benefits are deposited once a day before 9 a.m. No deposits will be made after this time. Please be aware that card program
Like, I renewed my food stamps on time and I got in contact with my homegirl caseworker and they said, I got approved. It just hasn't been reinstated. Like, my case hasn't been reinstated. I don't get it. What do you mean? I've been on food stamps since I was 18. I don't give a how it makes me look on TikTok. I don't care. Groceries are expensive. I don't care that I can't afford groceries. I want to use my food stamp card so I can put the grocery money towards another bill. Like, what are we talking about? Like, I have not looked at the price of groceries since I was 18. Why is everything so expensive? Mayo is like $5. I'm genuinely about to tweak in it. I'm genuinely about to tweak.
That's a problem I have when you have been so spoiled by food stamps that you don't look at the price of food. You just buy whatever you want and swipe your food stamp card. You just swipe your EBT. You don't even have to look at how much things cost. That's a problem. That's a problem. That means that you're getting way, way too much financial assistance. When you don't even have to look at the cost of food, you don't even have to budget. You don't have a grocery budget. You just go spend whatever the hell you feel like because you get so much. That's part of the reason why this entire situation has come down to this. There's been so much money that has been funneled into the food stamp program for people that may or may not actually need it, or the people that do need it get way more than they actually need. And that results in things like people selling their food stamps, because that is a thing that happens. Don't think it doesn't happen. People sell their food stamps for 50 cents on the dollar. It happens because they get so much food stamps. So many people, and they're on social media too. I've been thinking about doing a video about it, so let me know down in the comments if you want to see it. There are people that boast on social media about how they get so much money in food stamps that they go buy their groceries and then they sell the rest because they get so much excess funds. So the fact that this individual has been on food stamps since they were 18 years old, and now they suddenly don't have food stamps, and now they have to look at the price of food.
Access your account at Connect.
Okay, last one, you guys.
Every month, $3,500 in food stamps. How much y'all got? Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, y'all need to chill. And I got 7 baby daddies. Yes, I'm not ashamed. I don't regret nothing. I don't regret my first child. I don't regret my second child, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. All of them are a blessing to me. And if you don't feel that way, that's not your problem. That's not your problem because they're not your kids anyway. They're mine,
Right.
not yours. Like,
Right.
I don't get it. Like, what?
You're right. The fact that you have 7 children with different baby daddies is not any of my concern. And I would surely hope that you would not regret having your children because children are a blessing. But at some point, you have to wonder if it's a good idea or a bad idea to continue having children if you cannot financially provide for them. And that's not me being judgy. That's me being real. Children growing up in a household doing without is absolutely heartbreaking to me because these kids didn't ask to be born. And if they're born into a household where they could potentially go hungry, that's a problem.
EBT food stamps, how much y'all got?
Oh, that was a very good one to end the show with. She broke all that into 9 clips. So, I had a couple bad ones tonight, but other than that, I think we had a lot of good stuff out. Thanks, Kay, Michelle, out for tonight, and God bless everybody. Love all. Remember, please hit the like, sub to the backup channels, please. Description box. Thanks. And if we get breaking news tomorrow with Zelensky, I'll come on, but only if there's something big because he's meeting with Trump tomorrow. So whether or not I'll be on 5 or 6 tomorrow, I don't know what time the meeting is. So stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith, stay warm, and be careful out there in the bad weather. And there we go up. Another good night of intel, and we'll see you all tomorrow night. Thanks, Paul, everybody. We'll be see you all again tomorrow. We get breaking news.